Gay marriage might have an effect on society? Good! Let's do this. Hi everybody, BionicDance here. So a while back, some shithead made a video about 50, count 'em, 50 reasons why gay marriage will affect society. According to him, a bunch of people, homos, queers, according to him, said that gay marriage will not affect society. And he wanted to say, yaha, it will. The thing is, yeah, it will. Of course it'll affect society. When people say it won't, what we're really saying is that it won't have a negative effect on society. But of course it'll affect society. It just won't have any effect on your life in a bad way. Unless you let it. Unless you decide to take on all these extra burdens that, frankly, really aren't going to be there. That's just how this works. You're not going to be affected by gay marriage unless you're really, really, really looking for trouble. Yeah. Thing is, this guy apparently was so offensive he got his account terminated. But there was a mirror of a mirror of a mirror. I managed to get hold of it. Let's critique the living crap out of his reasons. Now, some of them don't have anything to do with gay marriage at all. It's just him hating on the queers. But hey, what you gonna do? Alright, let's go for it. Let's see reason number 1 on how gay marriage is going to affect society.
Example 1. Man divorces his wife. Yeah, that happens in any divorce. There's a lot of pain. But how much more is it when you find out that your husband is queer? Talk about rejection. That's example number 1.
Well, your first example is a really shitty one. Because number 1, it doesn't actually affect society at all. It affects one person. One. That's right. And also, it's not even a reflection on her. Not at all. Really, what they're saying is, hey, I am actually queer. I really am. And now I'm going to go follow my heart. But before I followed my heart, I decided to conform to what society said I should have been. That's right. And society said I need to be in a heterosexual relationship. And so I chose someone who really just reflected that ideal that society said I needed to be. And you were it. You were what society said I needed to have. So, good on you. You are the ideal. True, I'm leaving you now, but that's a reflection on me, not you. So, your example, really crappy. Just saying.
Example number 2 is putting salt on the wounds. A man divorces his wife, and the queers celebrate, say, oh, dude, you're being true to yourself, while that wife is devastated. And this is what you want others to embrace. How sickening.
So you'd rather everyone was stuck in a loveless relationship. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Oh, and also it still doesn't affect society. One person, one relationship, not society.
Example number 3, a husband and a father. He decides, oh, he really is a woman. Well, guess who's the first one affected? It's the spouse.
I really don't think the spouse is going to be the first one affected if that's what happens. Also, what does this have to do with gay marriage? That's got nothing to do with marriage, pal.
Number 4, confusing role model. Oh, this is pretty obvious. Yeah, daddy. Now, my daddy is a she. Yeah, right. Really good modeling there going on, don't you think?
As opposed to what? My father was an abusive, depressive drunk who ultimately killed himself? People are gonna have inner demons, pal. They gotta deal with them somehow. You really think that suppressing them is the best way to go? Sometimes life gets a little weird. People learn to cope.
Number 5, that kid, because of what his dad did, becoming a woman, becomes a punching bag at school. And you might say, well, hey, that happens all the time.
No, I'll say, hey, those kids are psychopathic little bullies who need to be stopped. That can't be allowed. That's not just going to be given a pass. No, I'm sorry. You don't get to just bully other kids. It doesn't work like that.
Yes, but there's something different. The parent is allowing this to happen, and it's making it available for the other kids to do something very bad to that kid.
Nah, you don't get to foist the blame off on the parent. The parent has no control over those kids. Those kids are acting like psychopaths completely on their own. Their bullying is their responsibility, not the parent.
Number 6, it will affect a brother or sister if they have one. Can you imagine this particular conversation? Hey, how's Sam, your brother, doing? What should be the response? She's doing fine? Talk about stupidity at its finest.
So in other words, you don't want somebody to be true to themselves because it may put you in a position to have to explain something that might be slightly socially awkward. Yeah, talk about selfish. And we still aren't talking about gay marriage, or how it affects society, just how it affects your selfish ass. Fuck you. Alright, we're gonna skip the rest of the transgender ones because they're all variations on exactly the same theme. Oh, how awkward it is for me to have to explain something. Oh no. Yeah, you get the idea, and this video's gonna be long enough as it is. The original video I'm responding to, half a fucking hour long. Imagine how long it'll be with responses. So, yeah, let's just spin on, shall we?
Number 11, queers starting families. In a natural, impossible. Maybe through a relative, maybe through adoption, maybe through artificial means, or through a heterosexual relationship. But by themselves, it is impossible. The only way a queer family can be is to take from the family. That's why it's against the family. It can only take, but it cannot give.
Well, first of all, you didn't say anything about gay marriage, and you didn't say anything about how this affects society, but leaving that aside, by your standards, my family, my mother, my father, and me, not really a family, I guess, because I'm adopted. So my heterosexual family took me from another heterosexual family that gave me up for adoption, and we're not really a family. Because, I was taken. Not given, taken. By your standards. And I guess we're not really a family, I suppose. And that's how we, affected society? What? I'm fairly certain my parents would be very insulted by this. That they took. Not gave. Yeah. Is biology the only thing that is what can possibly make a family? Or is a family the interaction between the people in it? What actually makes a family? Is it the love? Or is it the fucking? Which one is it? Explain that to me. Because I really don't think that it's just, man, woman, penis and vagina. Oh, look, sperm meets egg, pregnancy, shoving out a kid after 9 months. I don't think that's what makes a family. I think what makes a family is, hey, look, we have a child, and we raise that child, and we love that child, and we nurture that child. I think that is what makes a real family. That's what giving is. It's not about sperm meets egg.
Number 12. 2 Christian doctors are sued because a lesbian is not helped by them to have children artificially. And I'm sure the radical queer agenda thinks this is wonderful. I guess freedom of religion must bow to the radical gay agenda. That is number 12.
Since when does freedom of religion mean freedom to be a selfish rat bastard? Since when does freedom of religion mean freedom to deny people goods and services? It doesn't mean that at all. It means that nobody can force you to practice a different religion. It means that nobody can stop you from practicing your own religion. But what it doesn't mean is that you can take a place of business and deny people services from that business because it happens to conflict with your religion.
Example 13, redefining marriage. I remember when we lost our mom, she was 59 years of age. My dad got remarried. That lady became my stepmother. Though my dad would never do such a thing, hypothetically, if my dad were to marry a man, what would we call the man? And for all you idiots out there to say, well, duh, that's his partner, you have to understand one thing. It's hard enough adjusting to a new wife of your dad, but what would a little kid call the other man? That is pure confusion, and it's very illogical in my view.
And now it's you basically going on in the same way you were when we were talking about transgender stuff. I mean, at least this time it's about gay marriage, the title of your video, but even so, it's the same basic thing. It's you saying, I don't understand, I'm scared, I'm uncomfortable, this worries me in certain very superficial ways, and so I'm going to be a royal bigot in your direction. That's essentially what you're doing. You're saying, I'm going to make sure that you don't get to be true to yourself in order that I might be just a little bit more comfortable in my world, so that I don't have to deal with things that I find ever so slightly weird and uncomfortable. That's essentially what you're doing. And I am beside myself watching you do this to other people. Because, seriously, all you're doing is saying, I have to be extra comfortable. I have to be very, very secure and feeling safe. I can't ever deal with things that are outside my safety bubble. And I'm sorry, but the world is weirder than you're willing to deal with. You're gonna have to learn to cope someday because you're on the wrong side of history.
Number 14, Christians getting demonized. And my first example is this. They believe that it is an abomination to have same-sex marriage. But Muslims also believe that, and yet it seems, at least in my view, that the majority of Muslims are not picked on and called bigots and homophobes, but only the Christians.
The Muslims have their own problems with belly bombs, burqas, and flying airplanes into buildings. Okay, they're not the ones who are campaigning against gay marriage all the time. They're not the ones who are standing up in Congress. They're not the ones who have signs and parades and shit about this issue. So if you think Christians are getting demonized on the issue of gay marriage, it's because you Christians are the ones who are standing up talking about it. Okay? You're digging your own grave on this issue. Go lie in it.
Number 15. The trick question, designed to either shut you down or make you look stupid. Here's the example. When did you choose to be straight? That's why I need to address this. See, if you buy an iPhone, and I'm an Android user myself, there's only one operating system you're going to get on that phone, which is iOS. That's the way Apple did it by default. So when someone buys an iPhone, they don't choose that operating system because it's on by default. Now, if someone jailbreaks their iPhone and puts something else on it, then that is a choice. It's the same thing whether you want to use God, nature, evolution, whatever you want to use. Remember, by default, you have male organs that fit in female organs. Do you get the picture yet?
Except that genitals don't determine who you're attracted to. And your analogy of an iPhone's operating system is also not how it works. Or if it is, some people come with a different default OS. I realize you don't like to believe that, but the whole point of the when did you choose to be straight question is to try to get you to realize that it's not a choice to be gay. Because some people didn't choose it just the same way you didn't choose to be straight.
Number 15 was a trick question. This now is a trick statement. Usually when someone's in sin, they usually say, don't judge me. Who are you to judge? But if you examine that statement, then one should question this. How do you know someone is judging you unless you've made a judgment yourself that they are judging you?
Usually they haven't exactly left it to the imagination, you know? Usually they get right up in your face with it before anyone ever says, hey, don't judge me.
Example 17. A bunch of lesbians decided to go to a church in Michigan and have the audacity to throw condoms in the sanctuary. Now, if you're not religious, I would think someone would respect something.
Really? You expect people to give you respect? You expect to get respect from the people that you've been nothing but disrespectful to, calling them queers and talking about their queer agenda and expecting them to never ever get married, to never be equal citizens, to just fade into the woodwork and not ever have equal rights. Yeah, right, okay, sure. I'm sure they'll just be respectful to you. Uh-huh. Right, that's about to happen. No, I don't bloody think so. If you want respect, you're going to have to give respect. But right now, you're on the wrong side of history. You're behaving like a complete selfish jackass. If you want respect, you're going to have to give it. And you're not even coming close. These are people who are standing up and fighting for their rights, fighting for equality. And if they're going to behave in ways that are ever so slightly disrespectful, they're doing it to get attention. They're doing it to make waves so that people will actually say, hey, wait a minute, these are people who actually have to be dealt with. They're not going to just be respectful and kowtow to people like you. They're actually going to stand up and say, hey, we have to be dealt with on an equal playing field. So, I'm sorry, no, you don't get respect. Not if you're going to behave the way you have been.
Number 18, an outlet for hatred. Just go on Apologetics, my daughter's account, and you will see many hateful comments directed toward her. So this is a perfect excuse because they can't really pick on the blacks anymore because that would be a racist.
Excuse me, but they? Who exactly are they? Are you trying to claim now that homosexuals were picking on blacks before they started picking on Christians? Is that who they are exactly? Or are you trying to say now that liberals were picking on blacks before they went after conservative Christians now? Is that who they are? Who exactly are they? Because it's been my experience that it's the conservatives who went after the races before all of a sudden racism became not okay, and now they're going after the queers, is essentially how that went. So I'm pretty sure they is actually you. Just saying.
So what do? They demonize Christians, and it becomes their outlet to be hateful.
Really? Because I'm pretty sure that gays and lesbians wouldn't have a damn thing to say about Christians. Might even many of them be Christians themselves. I wouldn't, but many would. If Christians could stop saying things about homosexuals. If they would stop saying, no, you can't get married. If they would stop saying, you're spawn of Satan. Evil, bad thing. Because honestly, most of us don't have a huge problem with you religious types. I mean, granted, I think most of you are nuts, because I'm pretty sure your God doesn't exist. But honestly, if you left me the hell alone, I wouldn't care. But, well, you don't leave us alone. See, you say I'm demonizing you? I'm not. I'm defending myself against your ass. That's what's going on. If you would shut up and get out of my business, I'd have nothing to do with you.
Number 19, if same-sex marriage became the law federally, not just with the states, it is said that they would have over 1,000 rights and provisions. I'm not going to argue with that because the video that I am presenting is dealing with how same-sex marriage will affect society. Now, some of those particular rights and privileges, the only way you can get it, you have to interact, like social services or welfare or insurance, etc., etc., etc. You have to interact with society, and because of that, it does affect society. That's my point.
Oh no, you mean people might actually get some rights? The horror, the horror.
Number 20, a son or daughter decides to come out and say they are homosexual. You get the picture, it affects the family, friends, etc. That is number 20.
Everything you do affects people, pal. What makes this so special?
Number 21, change of perspective. Basically, those that were staunch against this particular issue are now all for this particular issue. I agree that we should love our kids unconditionally, but we are not to accept their actions unconditionally. If your son is stealing, if he's lying, if he's cheating, if he's a drunk, we should not accept those actions.
Did you just equate homosexuality to lying, cheating, stealing, and drunkenness? Really? It's nothing like that. People actually enjoy it, and it hurts nobody.
Number 22, not a blessed wedding day. And I'm speaking of the norm, not the exception. Many of the same-sex couples that get married do so with only a few people involved. They do not have the joy of having many family and friends come to their wedding. They truly don't have that acceptance, and they never will have that acceptance, no matter how hard they try to push it down our throats.
Well, A, that kind of affects them rather than society. But 2, whose fault is that? The bigots. Not them. It's not their doing. The people who caused that are the homophobes. Think about it, pal.
Number 23, the father giving away the bride. In a same-sex wedding, this can never happen.
Horseshit. I flat guarantee that if I ever get married, my dad will cheerfully do that for me.
Number 24, another thing that takes away from the family, and it will affect certain fathers. See, I did give away my daughter, but I didn't gain my daughter's partner. I gained a son.
Do I really need to point out the problem with this one? Not everyone's gonna feel like it's a loss if they get a same-sex child-in-law.
Number 25, Chick-fil-A. Okay, so how many regular couples do you know make out at any restaurant? But the queers really gotta show their moral standards, not by a guy kissing another guy, but that same guy kissing more than one. My daughter and I watched it, and we saw how totally disrespectful to families they are, and they want us to embrace them? I don't think so.
Disrespectful to families? You mean they didn't conform? That's not disrespectful, that's just not being exactly like you.
How about the lowering of sexual standards? Well, what exactly is the standard when it comes to homosexuals? Because if a parent says to their daughter, no messing around till you get married, and the daughter responds, well, that's not fair because my brother is a queer and he messes around with his boyfriend, and how come he can mess around and I can't?
Well, you are aware that there are straight people out there who look at your no fooling around until you're married rule and think it's crap also, right? You are aware of that. That you're basically just a stuck in the mud prude, right? I mean, you are aware of that.
Number 27, unfair to compare queers to pedophiles or having sex with an animal, but it is fair to give a guilt trip to Christians when a gay commits suicide, for any gay that gets beat up or gets murdered. We just blame the Christians because they believe that stuff. But let's take a hypothetical. Let's see how this will affect you. And how would this affect society? You have a man and a woman. He goes off to war. He dies. Now, he did have an 18-year-old daughter when he died. The wife and the daughter are very heartbroken over it. Should the mother and daughter be allowed to marry? If so, why do you say that, and how would that affect society? And if not, why are you discriminating against them? I thought that was only for the Christians to do. So let me know where you stand on that, please. Thank you.
It's wrong to compare homosexuals to incestuous pedophiles because they're not incestuous pedophiles. In your hypothetical, the mother and the daughter getting together is incest and pedophilia. See the problem?
Number 28, broken friendships. I've learned this when one of the guys that went to Bible college, I called him out on this queer crap, and guess what? We are no longer friends.
Stop being a bigot, asshole. Problem solved.
Number 29, Elizabeth, it's a big one. Yep, my YouTube account representing truth was terminated because of too much offensive material on this particular matter.
Are you starting to see a pattern here? At what point do you start to figure out that maybe you're a jerkwad and on the wrong side of history? And perhaps you ought to start changing your behavior a little bit.
Number 30, film creativity. Of course, Christians, yes, have done some of this. I agree. But Mr. Glad, that queer prophet website, they really like to go after anyone that has the audacity to put any kind of gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender in a bad light in their film. They try to staunch that creativity. And you know what? Most of the time, Hollywood actually listens. But they don't listen most of the time to the Christians.
Gee, they don't listen to the people saying, make them look like scum. Wonder why.
Number 31, comedians. Oh, Richard Pryor. Oh, boy, the way he talks about God and the way he talks about Christians, it's pretty vulgar. Some would say pretty funny too. And you know what? There's a lot of comedians today that continue that tradition. But when they slip up and they say something bad about the LGBT community, yeah, something bad begins to happen in their career. And many times they will apologize. But as far as the Christian, they're given the one finger salute while they bow to the God of Glad. It's unfortunate, but that's reality today. And that's how it affects comedians.
Once more, the principle of don't be an asshole rears its ugly head, apparently. Poor baby. Oh, nobody's treating you fair.
Number 32, eHarmony.com, a Christian dating service, got sued by some queers, and they lost. And because of that, now same-sex partners can go through eHarmony.com. Isn't it nice the love that the queers would share with this private organization that forced a Christian dating service to compromise their values?
Can we really call them values when basically it's nothing but bigotry? Really?
Number 33, healthcare costs. About $600,000 a patient. Those that have HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. That cost has to be passed on to someone. And my guess, that someone is you.
So you should be all kinds of in favor of gay marriage. They'll be less promiscuous, boinking one person. Monogamy. Isn't that something you're in favor of? Yeah. Less chance of getting AIDS if they're having sex with just one person.
Number 34, I call it sexual suicide. 300,000 men who have sex with other men have died of AIDS.
Well, let me reiterate my last point. Also, about AIDS, good thing it looks like we just fucking cured it, huh?
Number 35, man sues Bible publishing company because the Bible is against homosexuality. There's emotional damages of millions of dollars, but he did lose. The way that affects society is we get a good laugh. However, I want to bring a point for you to consider. There are those that have ministries to homosexuals. There are those that have churches full of homosexuals. Yet I know that when I was in school, whenever you had to do a paper, you had a thesis statement that would support whatever you're trying to bring out. So what are the two scriptures that a homosexual pastor can use that God has ordained sodomy? Because I could give plenty on how God has ordained a man and a wife. And if you can't do that, how can you say it's of God if God never said it?
Who even cares? Prove your God is real in the first place, dumbass.
Number 36, the day of silence. Very simple. This affects a lot of people because a lot of people have their kids in public schools. So you can't say it doesn't affect anybody. My son comes home and says, Dad, can I have tomorrow off? And I said, why? It's because they're having the day of silence. I said, what's that? Basically, you're not supposed to say anything, and thus you are supporting all this queer stuff. And I said, that's not good. And what happens if you say something? You could get suspended. So I decided to have him stay home. And the audacity for people to say it doesn't affect us, how dare they do such a thing? That is my kid, not the school's kid. Get a life.
Yeah, how horrible it is to support equality and tolerance among other people who might just happen to be different from you. Oh gee, the horror, the horror.
Number 37, a lesbian wedding for little kids. In California, a bunch of little kids went to a lesbian wedding. And you say, aw, isn't that so sweet? Did they take those same kids to a real wedding? I think not.
Excuse me, a real wedding? Fuck you, you fucking bigot.
Number 38, the attack of religious freedom on adoption agencies. In Massachusetts, when same-sex marriage became legal, the state told the Catholic adoption agencies they must have queers as adoptive parents as an option. The Catholic Church does not believe that, and rightfully so, even though I myself am not Roman Catholic. The point is, it's an attack against one of our most important freedoms. One of the main reasons why they came here, freedom of religion, and the audacity for people to support and celebrate when this happens. It just goes beyond my thinking of why are you an American and you agree with this decision.
And nobody is telling you that you can't worship as you choose and believe as you choose. But you are not allowed to discriminate in this country. You have to offer services equally to everybody. And I'm sorry, but freedom of religion does not trump that. That's just an American value, and if you don't like it, get the fuck out of this country.
Number 39, congregations losing their place of worship. Basically, you have a denomination that people have grown up all their life, and because of this queer crap, now they accept same-sex marriage and an ordination of clergy, which is so disgusting in the sight of God. Obviously, there's no fear of God with these queers. That's what it comes down to. But anyway, they lose their place of worship because the denomination decides to go the road of perversion instead of staying with the scriptures and by the traditions that they've had all these years. And thus, congregations no longer have a place to worship. Isn't that grand? Thanks to the queer agenda.
Tell me something. Why is it that at no time does it ever occur to you that you might be a bigoted jerk, and that's why you're on the losing end of so many of these? How come that never occurs to you?
Number 40, being a photographer in this queer age. There was a Christian photographer who got in trouble because the queers wanted a special photographer for their special event. But the Christian says, no, that's against my belief. They took the Christian photographer to court and they won. And while you're cheering that this happened, let me put this particular scenario in front of you. Let's say a band was recording, but they needed a drummer, and the drummer happened to be queer. And the drummer agreed to go in, and then the drummer had a change of heart, just like the Christian photographer did, because they realized one of the songs was saying, kill all gays, kill all gays. Now, should we apply the same standard to that queer drummer as the queers put to the standard of the Christian photographer? Judgy.
So let me see if I understand your comparison correctly. On the one hand, we have somebody who refuses to do a job because he happens to find a certain group icky and he doesn't want to take their picture. On the other hand, we have somebody who refuses to do a job because one of the songs he might be forced to play advocates violence against a minority. Yeah, that's a real even comparison. Sure.
Number 41, parents cannot have control over their little child reading A King and a King. No, the only thing they can do is opt out. There's a court case in Massachusetts.
How the Hades is opting out, not having control? Explain that to me.
Number 42, public records. A birth certificate shows you're male or female in your name. Now, with this queer agenda, you could have people going over and changing their sex and their name? Really? So where does this stop? What about a driver's license? What about all kind of tax papers? There's a whole can of worms that this has opened up. But that's right, the queer agenda must prevail against all else.
When you say things like queer agenda, what exactly do you think this agenda is? What is the goal exactly? Because that doesn't make any sense. And what will be aided by people changing their name or their sex? You know, what overarching plot will be achieved by, hey, look, my birth certificate no longer says, this name or that sex. Now it says this one. And now that I've disguised myself and I am, wearing a trench coat and a cloak and dagger, I will now achieve my diabolical aims. What exactly do you think is going to happen? No, it doesn't work like that. People are changing their name and their sex to feel more comfortable with themselves. It's not some horrible plot against you. And what, straight America, straight Christian America? That's not what it's about at all. You're thinking a little too self-centeredly, a little too selfishly, a little bit too much about yourself and how uncomfortable it makes you. It's not about you at all. You are not even a secondary concern, frankly. Go and ask somebody who's changing their name or their sex or whatever. Ask if you're a concern. Ask if there's an agenda. 'Cause there really isn't. I guarantee it.
Number 43, getting fired at your job for having a view. Now, there's a particular man, and I'll put it up on the screen for you, that never mentioned his views at work, but because he wrote about it outside of work, he got fired. Isn't that swell? I thought freedom of speech was important, but no, not when it crosses the radical queer agenda.
Oh, Frank Turek, I remember him. Guy's a complete wank stain. Yeah, it helps if you don't actually give your job a bad name if you want to keep it. Just saying.
Number 44, the recent change of the military and their attitude toward queers. So guys, watch it when you're in the showers. Be very, very careful.
Yeah, you don't want to accidentally pop a boner and find out you're gay.
Number 45, the parade. I remember going to family parades when I was a little kid, but now the queers have made full frontal nudity as part of a parade, just for all the little children to see the family values that are so lacking at a pride parade.
Their bodies. Everybody has one. What does this have to do with family values? What does it even have to do with being gay? You're not making any sense.
Number 46, you have a Christian who has a business in Connecticut. They discover that one of their employees is a homosexual. No big deal until they apply for medical insurance. And according to the state, they have to give it to them. For all of you that would cheer and say, yes, that must be. Let's put this scenario out. Let's say that same particular business, there's one particular guy that is also working there, and he has a brother that doesn't have good insurance. Should he also get insurance, or are we going to discriminate him and yet the homosexual will get it and his partner? You explain to me that logic, because I think it's an unfair bias toward the homosexual community.
How? In what way is allowing the insurance an unfair bias? In what way would denying it not be discrimination? Explain that to me.
Number 47, the giving of blood. It's very clear. The FDA says that men that have sex with men cannot give blood.
I'd just like to reiterate one more time just how far you've strayed from the title of your video, namely 50 Ways Same-Sex Marriage Affects Society. We're talking about the giving of blood. Same-sex marriage? Just saying.
Number 48, a transgender bill and the bathrooms in Connecticut. Basically, a transgender could go into whatever bathroom of their choice. If you're a father, you have a 6-year-old daughter, and then you see some guy coming out, what would you think? Would you be concerned about your daughter? I know I would, and I know many would.
First of all, some guy. I know a lot of transgender folks going in either direction, and I flat guarantee that people you've described as some guy, some of them might take it as a compliment, some of them would be quite insulted, depending on which way they're going. But point is that describing a transgender person as some guy, well, you're being kind of rude, frankly. I know what you're getting at, and you're insulting some of my friends. That's just all there is to it. But furthermore, what exactly are you worried about happening? I mean, are you assuming that transgender people are, going to whip something out and start showing it to people? You think that no one's going to just go into a stall, drop a load, wipe, and leave? Do you think that maybe a transgender person might not be post-operative and therefore have nothing to whip out? I mean, what do you think is exactly going to happen in that bathroom? Most people, when they go into the bathroom, they're either going to urinate, defecate, adjust their makeup, or whatever it is they're going to do. What exactly are you worried is going to happen to your daughter? Huh? And remember, there are female-to-male transsexuals. Are you worried about what might happen to your son? I mean, have you seen Chaz Bono lately? Dude got huge. Could probably beat the shit out of your son. I'm just saying, it's not like they're going to be having surprise butt sex or anything. And let's face it, I have a feeling that Chaz Bono would probably be insulted at the notion that, he might even want to do that, assuming he had the anatomy for it. Point is, if you're worried for your daughter, why? Why would you be worried for your daughter? What exactly do you think is going to happen in that bathroom? How many people get assaulted by transgender people in bathrooms? You're a fool, friend. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Number 49, consider the sports world. Now, maybe no one has a big deal with a pro wrestler. What about a transgender runner? I mean, a guy that's now a girl. I think that would be a little unfair to the other girls, is my view. And what about a guy on a basketball team that's now a girl? So that's another one because of this gay crap.
I wonder. It's been my experience that people who are really, really obsessed with a thing tend to be that thing. And you've talked a lot about transgender stuff. I mean, I even had to skip quite a few of them near the beginning just because you kept basically saying the same thing in different ways. Are you sure you don't wish you were a chick? Just saying. Anyway, let's move on to the very last one.
And now coming to the big one, number 50. Number 50, the Boy Scouts. I was a Boy Scout when I was a kid. I loved it. It was great. What I don't like is a private club like the Boy Scouts being bullied by the radical gay agenda. Playing the victim, but in reality, you are the one that's being the bully. If someone wants to have a club and discriminate against someone, that is their right.
And if someone is acting like a complete jerkwad because of their discrimination, it's our right to inform the rest of the world of it, to point and laugh, to say, hey, these guys are being dicks. Don't have anything to do with them, or we're gonna point and laugh at you too. It's our right to turn public opinion against you, which we've done. It's your own fault. Shape up or ship out, pal.
And now I will come to the conclusion of my video and my concluding remarks. I have a few important remarks I'd like to conclude with. 1. For those in the past that have called me stupid and retarded, or believe so today, and choose to comment on the video, then if we were to take your premise, if a retarded person, according to you, could come up with 50 examples of how same-sex marriage affects society, that would mean you should be able to come up with a lot more. And if that is true, what that means is that you are the one that is hateful. You are the one that is wicked. And why do I say that? The reason why I say that is because you know better, and yet you purposely throw that in a person's face.
Did that make any sense to anybody else? If we think he's stupid, then how did he come up with 50 examples of how gay marriage affects society? Which he didn't. He came up with 50 examples of how things he likes to call queer affect society, not gay marriage. And we should be able to come up with more examples, but if we don't, then we're the ones who are hateful, and we're just throwing it in people's faces, and so we're the bad guys. What? What? Okay. I'm gonna stand by the conclusion that this guy's stupid. I mean, I'm not one of the ones who said it to him before this video. I only just heard about him now, but the people who said it before, yeah, right on.
Second, concerning this whole queer thing, and notice that I hardly use anything concerning the Bible. I didn't quote anything. There's a reason for it, because, everything's based on your Bible. Yes, it is. But because I have the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of wisdom, God has given me wisdom in putting this together. Now, one last thing. The way people are convinced as Christians that this garbage is okay is a simple tactic. You simply get the Christians to be around queers long enough that corruption will rub off on them and they'll change their views.
So let's think about that for a minute. On the one hand, you have this book that teaches you paranoia and hatred and prejudice. And on the other hand, you've got real life that shows you, hey, gays aren't quite so icky, not quite so bad, and aren't going to go around raping your children all the time like you've been taught. So, which way you going to go? Fantasy? Reality. Fantasy or reality? Which way you going to go? Prejudice? Reality. Seems to me you'd rather hold on to your prejudices than go with real life.
Yet, according to the Word of God, it is very clear from Scripture that Jesus and what He did on the cross has the power to change the homosexual into a new creation.
Well, some of us are quite happy being homosexual, thank you very much indeed. So don't you go forcing your bullshit on the rest of us, whether we want it or not. Fuck off. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think. Please take the time to rate this video. And hey, if you dig what I do, subscribe. And please visit my Zazzle store, where you'll find all kinds of BionicDance merchandise. Rating videos has been found to cause fresher breath, enhanced metabolism, and greater sexual magnetism.